Hello. So every week, every 3 weeks of Touchstone is what I refer to as a cycle. And each cycle will contain a theme introduction session, a practice session, and a coaching and integration session so that we can take the overarching theme that's initially introduced or discussed, and then we can start to build a little more awareness around that theme for the next 3 weeks. So it can be something that we can dialogue about. We may journal about it. During a practice session, we may use body-based practices and somatic tools to basically hone in onto whatever that theme may be. And then the third week would be a coaching or integration session where we meet in our group and people can come and reflect on how that theme has been present for them. If there have been any celebrations, any gains, success stories, boundaries set, or if there's still a little bit of a, I'm not sure what my block is. I don't know how to proceed with this specific situation, or troubleshooting desired, then it's a space for you to bring that up and we can connect about it. So I thought I would give you all a sample of what coaching can look like because coaching is this esoteric thing that not everyone it's really difficult to articulate what coaching is, what happens in it. And so if you've never experienced coaching yourself, attended it, or led a session, you may be wondering what exactly happens. So in today's email, I provide a sample of what our theme introduction call could sound like. And so I decided to record a little audio version here in case you are someone who is more auditory than visual and you'd like to just hear a voice to put to the coaching session. So, for the purposes of our newsletter, the sample cycle theme that we'll be discussing is stimulation during the holiday season. So, overstimulation occurs when one or more of your senses take in more information from external stimuli than your brain can process at that moment. This can happen to anyone at any time, especially when you're feeling depleted. It can present as a physical and or emotional discomfort. So you could feel unfocused, anxious, scattered, overwhelmed, frustrated, restless, irritable, stressed, wound up, like this overexcitement that exists in your body. Or you can feel extra emotional. You might feel the urge to just break down and cry. Those are just some of the things that you can feel when you're overstimulated. There's a myriad of other things too that I'm sure maybe you could even add to that list. Overstimulation can be caused by overconsumption through the body or the mind. I'll say that again because this feels really important. Overstimulation can be caused by overconsumption through the body or the mind. So this could be a sensory stimulation, intellectual, social, or emotional. And for the purposes of this chat right now, we'll just touch into a few of these. This is not an exhausted list, just so you know. This is just a portion. So sensory stimulation is could be like you find yourself in a crowded or a really loud environment. Have you ever been in a restaurant where sounds are just echoing off the walls and all you hear are other people's conversations, but you have a really difficult time focusing on the one person in front of you? It could be blinking or bright lights, like a strobe light or extremely bright white light late at night, so that your eyes are constantly feeling um, overwhelmed by the sensation. It could stimulation could also come from your clothing. So a really itchy sweater. Um, if you've ever worn something that feels really itchy, it's almost as though for me personally, I can't think of anything else. I can't take my mind off of, oh my gosh, I just want to itch. Why is this itching so much? And it makes it really difficult to focus on what's happening actually presently in the moment. There's emotional stimulation. So you could be watching a dramatic movie and you get flooded with emotion that happens with it. Emotional stimulation can also occur when you're engaging in an intense therapy session or conversation, or even having a difficult conversation. How many times have you gotten together with perhaps family at the holidays and a difficult conversation, differences in political opinions or some social justice? It comes up, and there could also be a flood of emotions that is too fast, too quickly for your brain to actually process. And the last one we'll discuss for now is information stimulation. So, scrolling social media, glued to never ending news streams, whether that's in print or in visual form or audio, or putting in long hours at work. Like you get to the end of the day and you're like, I cannot hear another sound. Those are signs that you're overstimulated by something. The holidays themselves, whether you do or don't celebrate, I think this holiday stretch of the season can feel a lot busier than we'd like, especially when it's during a season of wintering. So winter is kind of seen as more of an inward energy, quieter, earlier nights, more rest, more nourishing. And the holidays are essentially a direct opposite of that. And they can be incredibly stimulating with more socializing, more work deadlines, perhaps, time spent in crowded spaces, boisterous celebrations, and really full schedules. The more depleted that we are, the more apt we are to become overstimulated because our brain and our body have less capacity to take in and integrate external stimuli. So let's take a moment. If you have a journal, if you have something with you, let's just take a few minutes to kind of drop into the body so that you can start to reflect on some of the stimulation that might impact you most during the next couple of months or any day, really. So, having a journal handy and a pencil, if it feels comfortable, I'll just invite you to close your eyes. And if you don't want to close your eyes, just have like heavy lids, almost like you're just kind of taking your gaze and focusing it down towards your belly button. Staying here, just settling your body, getting comfortable. Take a breath in and take a breath out. Inhale, exhale. One more breath in, one more breath out the mouth. Coming back into the presence of your body, breathing naturally and normally as possible with your eyes closed. Just breathing in and out. Feeling your lungs fill with air, feeling that air leave your lungs, expanding and contracting as the breath flows in and out of your body. Settle your awareness onto the seat if you're seated right now. Attention to your hip area, maybe your lower back or your glutes. Just feeling where you're making contact with the seat. And see if you can settle into that contact just 10% more on your next exhale. Just releasing your weight into that seat and settling. Bringing the awareness down your legs, down into the calves, the ankles, your feet. And if your feet are placed on the floor, you can even just gently press your feet, the soles of your feet into the earth beneath you, the floor beneath you, and just feel that connection between the bottom of your feet and the floor. Staying in that connection, staying with your breath. Just like you to think about the external stimuli that come across your daily life and perhaps the external stimuli that may increase during this season of celebration and this season of outward energy. And keeping your eyes heavy, you can crack them open a little bit and just start to make a list. Just make a list of all of the external stimuli that impact you the most. It could be being social. That can feel really exhausting for some people. Dressing up may prevent a form of stimuli, sensory stimuli that the skin doesn't really necessarily love. Late night parties, going to restaurants, shopping in crowded grocery stores, particular family members or friends that you might be seeing over the next month or two. So just taking the next 30 seconds here to keep jotting down, make a list. What are the external stimuli that you will be coming across? And what are the elements? What are those stimuli that may impact you the most, that have had the most exhausting, um, maybe unfocused, scattered, overwhelmed, restless, or irritable or stressed energy when you do this thing? Maybe too often, too much, or just when you do this thing, period. Wrapping up your list, you can come back to this at another time if you know that there's still more you want to add, but for now, or you could actually pause this recording and keep making your list. And when you're ready, come back. And you can reflect over the next couple of months. Where or when do you see yourself being around the stimuli that are on your list? When do you see yourself being in these situations that may become overstimulating for you? And just jot that down on your journal right next to the item, the external stimulus item. When you may see that happening, you might already know what some of the events are on your calendar or work deadlines or shopping trips. So just make a list. When and where do you see yourself being immersed in this stimuli? Keep breathing as you're creating this list. And for the next few questions, I'm going to list these questions and ask you to pause the recording so that you can stay with yourself and actually reflect on this, because these might take a little bit more time. Here are the 3 questions. Jot these down. How can you support yourself leading up to those times? How can you support yourself during those times of overstimulation? And how can you support yourself after times of increased stimulation? So you're going to pause this recording and reflect and journal on how you can support yourself leading up to times of stimulation, during times of stimulation, and after times of stimulation. And when that reflection feels complete, I'll meet you back here on this recording. So moving forward, for those of us who've returned on a live call, it's really helpful to hear other people's ideas and wisdom and reflections around these topics. So this would be a space where I would invite people to share how they're going to support themselves. What are some of the stimuli that you'll be facing? And in those conversations, it can feel really connecting to hear that, oh, I'm not the only one who feels this way. And it can also feel really helpful to gain ideas and wisdom from one another so that we can support ourselves moving forward. Because we're on a recording here and I can't have real-time dialogue, I'll just finish this conversation by sharing a few ways that I thought of that you can support yourselves during stimulating situations. For me, it's really helpful to plan ahead. I'm in a place where knowing my schedule can allow me to plan accordingly. So it can allow me to plan when I'm going to rest, how much energy I'll need. And so I'll just kind of reorganize my day to somewhat match that when possible. It can also be really helpful to minimize exposure to the difficult external stimuli. So, maybe there's 2 celebrations 2 nights in a row. I know that I can't handle that. At this point in time, that might be too much for me. So maybe I'm gonna pick one that I go to, or maybe I make a commitment to myself that I'm going to only stay for 30 minutes. Any way that I can minimize the impact of that exposure. Nourish yourself properly with hydration and nutrient-rich foods. That can be a way to give back to our body to make sure we have, the reserves and the capacity to hold more. Taking breaks is another way to support yourself. So prioritize periods of little or no external stimuli. So when I say taking a break, that could be soaking in a tub. It could be going for a walk without your phone. It could be just taking a 30-second break where you get up from your computer and stand and shake your body and breathe. So whatever that looks like for you. And last but not least, I would recommend also considering joining Touchstone. It's going to be a space to intentionally settle and regulate your nervous system at least once a week. So that could be a way to support yourself to integrate some of these stressors and stimuli that are going to be ramped up this season. So it could be a way to move them through us so that it doesn't build up to a threshold where we just shut down. And it can also be a way to replenish our reserves so that we can participate in these things and feel present in that exact moment. So thank you for joining me for this audio call that kind of gives you a little idea of some of the things we could be discussing and the flow. And I will be back in your inbox tomorrow with a sample of a somatic practice to use when we're feeling stimulated. See you then.